All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Of course, Friday Live, Mar-a-lago Warrant Unsealed, Nuclear Secrets, Twitter Fortification, etc. We've got so much to cover today. About half of it relates at least tangentially to the Mar-a-lago raid. We've got a bunch of other gems, though, so stay tuned. This will be a good one. Also, keep in mind, I will be going live later as well on Break the Rules. In fact, should probably get that link. Just a minute here. Let me grab the link to the Break the Rules broadcast. I'll be going on later with Alex Stein. He's the one that trolled AOC. More recently, I can't remember what's her name from CPAC, one of those various legacy media reporters that was trying to start shit there. So I'll grab that link. I'll pop that in for people. That will be about 2 hours from now. So I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter than normal, potentially. Let me, what the hell am I doing? I got 10,000 tabs open. I've got everything. Literally everything. All of the news topics are mine. Let me put this on YouTube really quick. All right. I don't want to see myself speak any more than I want to hear myself speak. I have to do that every time I speak. Be lucky you don't. Let me pop that in there. All right. I've pinned a message if you're watching on YouTube, and you can go to that at your leisure. Bookmark it for a couple of hours from now. Well, 2 hours and about 10 minutes. I will be going on BTR as well. So that'll be a good time. Again, we have Alex Stein there. He is the one that trolled AOC, calling her, what was it, Big Booty Latina, I think. Something along those lines. We'll get into de-radicalization, actually, although I think there's going to be a lot more humor. It's not a debate. It's just a discussion. 87 Sparky, did you see that the French decided to change Joan of Arc's pronunciation to be called them they? What a great way to destroy history. I didn't see that. Wouldn't surprise me. Salte, love that early bird special at 6:43 a.m. in New York City. Yes, I'm going live a little bit early because I have an appearance in a couple of hours. Paracelsus Underrock. It's a bit old, but the feds raided an Amish farmer, took his harvest, and levied a massive fine. May need to look it up. Stephen Nizek, if we have two trolls like Styx and Stein on a stream and they don't troll each other, is it really a troll stream? Yeah, it's a meeting of the minds. I'm the destroyer of ICQ and he's the destroyer of AOC. I think it works fairly well. Let me, just as a joke. Here, just a sec here. I got some good shit. Oh, that's not the right link at all. What the hell am I doing? I don't even know what I'm doing half the time here. Can't even broadcast on Twitch, by the way. I was banned for, I can't remember, misinfo or something like that, which was extremely funny. Okay. All right, anyway, we have a huge amount of news to cover. We'll make sure that we're live on Rumble. I believe that we are, although it does say that it's still processing. That would be something. There are people watching. Yeah, okay, we're live there, and the Rumble rants are open, but no Rumble rants yet. We've got a lot to talk about. The first one is actually a post that I made, and I just wanted to post this here. I wanted to read through these. Because here's basically with the warrant unsealing for the Mar-a-Lago raid, here's the rough breakdown. Initially, the other day, liberals were saying, well, if Trump is innocent, then he won't fight the unsealing of the warrant. He has no problem with it. And then Trump came out and said, well, you know, I do, not only do I not have a problem with this, I actually encourage it. Please release the warrant. And I wanted to get a few of these hot takes. I did a supercut here with the image, which I have to expand out, of course, in order to actually read it. Jack Cosciarella, Trump's legal team is trying to stop the warrant from being unsealed, which makes me even more excited to see it. Your excitement may turn to disappointment, by the way. Tristan Snell, update, Team Trump is actively trying to stop the warrant from being unsealed because they know it'll contain damaging info. Representative Eric Swalwell. Yes, this is a taxpayer-funded individual weighing in on a private citizen's ongoing legal case, by the way. If Donald Trump has nothing to hide, he will tell the court he supports the DOJ unsealing the search warrant. Andrew Weissman, cited, I believe, by, MSNBC earlier, I think. Brilliant move by Garland. Make motion to unseal everything, including material Trump has already, warrant and return. So now the ball is in his court to object or consent, calling Trump's bluff. The Midas touch. These people are hilarious. Get this. Donald Trump and his allies are now discussing ways to avoid the Justice Department from unsealing the warrant. You can't make this up. The Lincoln Project, our friends over at the fake Republican Project. Attorney General Merrick Garland has announced the DOJ has filed a motion to unseal the warrant of the search for the FBI executed at the Mar-a-Lago this week. The ball now is now in Trump's court to object or release it himself. Brooklyn Dad defiant. Trump is terrified of that warrant being released. And Michael Bislos. Now, what motive might Trump have to keep the search warrant and inventory closed? Now, here was Trump's reaction. All of these are old posts. These are at least 10 hours old. So Trump weighed in a couple of hours later. We'll get to the MSNBC hilarious post up above as well. Donald J. Trump. This was on Truth Social. Not only will I not oppose the release of documents related to the un-American, unwarranted, and unnecessary raid and break-in of my home in Palm Beach, Florida, Mar-a-Lago, I am going a step further by encouraging the immediate release of those documents, even though they have been drawn up by radical left Democrats and possible future political opponents who have a strong and powerful vested interest in attacking me, much as they have done for the last 6 years. Well, he has no problem with the unsealing. I noticed that a lot of the liberals immediately pivoted to saying, well, but his legal team will come out and say that they don't want it released. Well, you've got it in black and white in a public space from the person who actually owns the property. The legal team can't countermand that. The DOJ can go forward and say, look, he has no problem with it. Fuck the legal team. As far as I know, it would be legal for them to release it now. MSNBC managed to post something about Merrick Garland's statement the other day, though. We'll get to that briefly here. This was more recent. In just 4 minutes, the Attorney General defended the DOJ and dared Trump to block America from seeing the FBI's search warrant. He's not trying to block it. He's encouraging you to release it. He has no problem with this. So if Trump has no problem with it, does that mean that he's innocent? Because that seems to be the litmus test that I heard about the other day. You were all saying if he was innocent, he would have no problem with the releasing, the unsealing of the warrant. And he has no problem with the unsealing of the warrant. So what's the problem here? Jesus Christ. Yes, people are participating on Rumble. Here, just a sec. Anyway, yeah, so the first piece of news is basically the warrant apparently will be unsealed, or at least that's a tale right now. There could be legal, whoop-de-whoops going on with regards to that, but Trump does not himself personally appear to have any problem with them being fully disclosed. I was told the other day by people that don't like Trump that if he acted in such a manner, that meant that he was innocent. Well, I guess Trump's innocent, right? Are you going to give him credit for coming out and saying this? Of course not. They immediately pivoted to the nuclear issue, which is astroturfed horseshit, of course. FBI Director Wray pushes back on threats following unprecedented raid on Trump. Deplorable and dangerous. Authorities have seen a significant increase in death threats aimed towards Garland, Wray, and FBI agents. Yes, there was actually an attempted shooting the other day. A person with a nail gun, actually, initially attempted to break into the Cincinnati FBI offices. There is no motive known at this time. Probably is somebody who is already on the edge and will be shown to have been radicalized by, supposedly statements by Donald Trump, but really it'll be, they were a follower of Richard Spencer or something like that, probably. Here's my thing. When you use the term deplorable to refer to people, regardless of the context, it's fairly understood what you're actually referring to. This was a Hillary Clinton statement in the 2016 election, specifically to describe all of Donald Trump's fans. Many tens of millions of voting Americans were called deplorable and reprehensible because they did not support Hillary Clinton. He knows exactly what he's saying. He's fully aware of this. And that's the whole point behind it. He called the threats deplorable and dangerous. Deplorable is not a word in the average person's vocabulary outside of the context of the deplorables. Just to be clear, linguistics does actually matter. The comments were made after a news conference at the agency's field office in Omaha, Nebraska, where Wray provided comments about the FBI's focus on cybersecurity. Very interesting. Using yesteryear's linguistics, of course. Which is very funny, and they're pretending that they're facing all sorts of threats. Dude, the average person, unless they're completely suicidal, is not actually going to attack an FBI field office. Just, I'm sure that they are at least vaguely aware of the fact that the FBI has more guns than they do, because you brag about it constantly, and you probably by now, they must have Stinger missiles and shit like that. They probably have anti-air systems. Yeah, the average sane person, so someone who's not on the edge, neither is going to become violent, number one, because of the incitement of people who are pissed at the FBI right now, myself and many others included. They're not going to become violent at that. And number two, if they were to become violent, they're not going to attack the FBI directly because they'd be afraid. They know that they'll get shot. They'll get killed. Incognito. Can you tell your twin bro to fix his internet? Lol. I believe that Razorfist should just take his phone, which still works, and make a vertical video and make a YouTube short addressing this sort of stuff. You're literally being caught sleeping during one of the most monumental political news debates of the current century. So you might want to fix that shit, my dude. Go to a friend's house. The Spencer, Jeebus 666, Christ sticks. It's 4 a.m. here. Caught you. Whoopsie. Yeah, I know it's a little bit early, but I do have a live stream later. In roughly 2 hours from now, I will be on BTR as well. My channel, G115. 6 a.m. in Florida. You being live now works out well. I was getting my 1M old a bottle. Guess she figured snacks were needed while listening. Clank. Wolf Better, did Garland unironically use the nuclear code meme to justify the raid? Really? Is it real life or just fantasy? He didn't use that specifically. There is supposedly a leaker that leaked material to the New York Times, and then it spread to WAPO and others. Let me ask this. If it was actually necessary to raid the Mar-a-Lago, so you think that there's nuclear secrets, whatever it happens to be there, why did you wait 1.5 years? That's number one. And number two, if this is not found, would it not disprove the legacy media's anonymous source with this particular story? I don't know which is worse. Imagine that they do find, they find documentations that involve nuclear secrets or something. I don't think Trump faces charges for it, but imagine that they're there. They've been declassified, whatever. Well, then you've got a problem where you've got a leaker within the FBI. That should be significant. If they are not found, if they are not there, then it means there was no leaker and the legacy media is literally making shit up as it goes. I think the latter is, by the way, more likely. I would think that both of these things would be a problem to self-professed liberal individuals, but, you know, they got cognitive dissonance. Fictitious Dave Savage, breaking, the definition of unsealed has changed. Yeah, look for that Wikipedia article. There'll definitely be some editing going on. Skycloud Rain, I know everyone is all concerned about Mar-a-Lago, but Zelensky is instructing his troops to fire on Russia's recently acquired nuclear power plant. Debatable. No, we don't know who's doing the firing in all of those cases. I will be visiting that, though. So, yeah, the FBI director is calling people deplorable, so that should be a little bit of a wake-up call. Then we have questions grow about Trump raid after subpoena and extensive cooperation. This is from Just the News. Apparently last spring, Donald Trump already had gotten a subpoena. So this is months ago, and was cooperating with the FBI or with investigators with regards to the documentation that was requested by the National Archives. if this is indeed the case, then it makes it really goddamn fishy that there was also a raid on the property. Apparently, a lock was doubled up just to make sure that nobody could breach and access this material. Trump and others were forthcoming to them. While the cooperation was mostly arranged by his lawyers, Trump personally surprised the DOJ National Security Division prosecutor and 3 FBI agents who came to his Mar-a-Lago compound on June 3rd, greeting them as they came to pick up a small number of documents compliant with the subpoena. The sources told Just the News, speaking only on condition of anonymity because the visit was covered by grand jury secrecy. Now, this could be bullshit, but then again, so could all of the other anonymous sources and people familiar with the matter weighing in. You'll notice the legacy media and the Never-Trumpers will reject this. They'll consider this to be bunkum, effectively. But they will accept similar tales by anonymous sources, unnamed sources, et cetera, if they come from CNN. It's very, very interesting to see the human psychology involved. The subpoena requested any remaining documents Trump possessed with any classification markings, even if they involve photos of foreign leaders, correspondence, or mementos from his presidency. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want a memento? Hey, I was the president of the United States. Here's a Kim Jong-un napkin. I think that was actually explicitly mentioned the other day. Given Trump's instruction, the president's lawyers complied and allowed the search by the FBI before the entourage left cordially. 5 days later, DOJ officials sent a letter to Trump's lawyers asking them to secure the storage locker with more than the lock they had seen. The Secret Service installed a more robust security lock to comply. So even Secret Service, which is not beholden to Trump and simply is there to guard him and his family, supposedly was involved with the locking down process. Skycloud Rain. Putin stated that if Zelensky causes a dangerous explosion launching radioactive material, he will retaliate with tactical nukes. Yeah, I don't think he actually said that, Skycloud Rain, because that would be suicide. It'd be funny, but yeah. Balsamon 35. I'd criticize the FBI, but I have a wife, children, and dogs. I don't want to give an excuse for jackbooted political partisans killing my dogs and pointing guns at my family. Thanks for all your work. Oh, you're welcome. Eric, here's a donation to buy more diapers to fill with Andy Six's logs. So, yeah, I mean, the tale is that Trump was already coordinating with these people, already cooperating. They had full access. He had no problem with it. And if that is the case, imagine this. Imagine that the tale being told by the FBI is true. Okay, there's nuclear documentation there. You had full access to all these documents. Nobody was impeding you. You had the ability to show up night or day. Nobody cared. And you didn't do anything for a year and a half. Am I really supposed to believe that? Because I don't. I think that that's horse shit. I think you're full of shit if you actually believe that. Here, just a second. Let me see. Next story, The Washington Post. FBI searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence for classified nuclear documents. Ooh, doesn't that sound spooky? You see, the problem is that if you go through the weeds, then you find the non-weeds, and there aren't many of them. The FBI sought to locate classified documents related to nuclear weapons, among other items, when agents searched former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida this week. People familiar with the investigation told the Washington Post. It's interesting. It always goes through the WAPO. Nobody else ever gets informed first. The people did not offer additional details to the Post about what type of information the agents were seeking or whether any such documents were recovered, according to the paper. Okay, so even if we assume that the initial story is true, you don't even know if anything was recovered. So who gives a shit? The revelation adds key context, no it doesn't, to the Justice Department's extraordinary decision to search the home of a former president. And CNN goes on and on and on here. There are so many problems with this. First, you don't have any named sources. Secondly, it sounds like horseshit to me. Thirdly, you're not even talking about what types of documents were there and or what was or was not recovered. Everything about this stinks to high hell. Nothing about this is particularly credible. It sounds like the Steele dossier, only even with less evidence, I suppose, this time. But it's being reported on as though it's true. It's, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, Trump took the nuclear codes back to the Mar-a-Lago because he's just goddamn insane. And that's really why I reject this. The idea is that Donald Trump is nuts, he's malicious, and he's also incompetent. He has to be all three of those things to excuse the sort of things that we're seeing now. But we've been told that now for years and years, and all of the other investigations have been horseshit. And we know that they're horseshit because we've seen them fall apart. The investigation into the Steele dossier, the January 6th hoax investigation. So why would I believe this one? Why wouldn't I think that it's basically the same? Let's see. Cat is singing out there. Regis Philbin's scrotum. Bang, bang, skeet, skeet. Sasura, I had the page open but didn't start until I went back on the tab. YouTube is tiresome sometimes. And Viridian G. Hello, Sticks. Good work, man. Keep it up. Love from South Korea. I need some South Korean food at some point. I do like kimchi. Yeah, the poor FBI having to deal with this horseshit. Politically weaponized. You know, some of these people actually think that they're doing a good job, and they imagine joining up for the FBI, and then you find out basically you're just a lackey for politicians. That must suck. Yes. So apparently one of the parts of it supposedly is nuclear documents, but there's no proof of it. It's just a claim. There's no evidence of this. It's so far we don't know anything else about the case, but it's front page news anyway. And it's been astroturfed by liberals in the wake of the fact that Donald Trump told them go ahead and unseal the fucking warrant. They didn't have anything to talk about. They had to scramble for something to discuss in order to make Trump seem guilty because, of course, Orange Man bad. The department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek a less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that's undertaken, Garland said at the news conference. Well, yeah, I mean, supposedly you had cooperation 4 or 5 months ago. So why the hell did you raid the property? They were already cooperating. Showing why you should not cooperate with law enforcement, by the way. E. Lombard, typical Dem MO. Plant the story, report it, quote each other as sources, repeat. Thank you, Sticks. Kimchi is yummy. Yes, that does seem to be what happened with the Steele dossier. You bounce stories back and forth between figures, and all of a sudden they magically become canonical because those figures are trusted. And by the way, the nuclear codes change regularly. So if Donald Trump literally had a notepad with the nuclear codes on it, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't even probably be classified. Now we'll talk about Twitter. This is their reaction to the current situation politically. Twitter safety. Starting today, we'll begin enforcing the civic integrity policy in context of the U.S. 2022 midterms. This means we'll take action against misleading claims about the voting process, misleading content intended to intimidate or dissuade people from participating in the election, or misleading claims that may undermine public confidence in election outcomes. Now, that sounds fine so far now, doesn't it? Learn more about what else we've been doing to address the U.S. elections conversation here. As basically a bunch of fluff and bullshit. That's perfectly fine. See, the problem is there will be differential enforcement. If the MAGA candidate loses and questions their loss, even if there's an automatic recount or something, people supporting them will be banned. If a neoliberal candidate like Stacey Abrams loses, and she probably will, and she bitches like she did the last time about losing and saying that it was the result of voter fraud or voter intimidation or something like that, do you think that they'll actually face any repercussions? There's an entire double standard here. I mean, you all know this. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm just making it clear my particular view on the situation. Differential enforcement is bigger than censorship, actually, on these platforms, I've noticed. Skycloud Rain, playing devil's advocate, how could they use this Mar-a-Lago debacle to work in their favor and be successful? Like if you were in this clown admin. I would hold it over the heads of the Republicans through the midterms in order to prevent MAGA from growing so much that I couldn't subsume them in 2024. To make sure that the neocons plus the neoliberals remain greater than the alternatives. That's what I would do, and that's what they are doing, by the way. P. Deitel. If the records were under guard by the Secret Service, was there a violation of the law as they claim? Not necessarily. And of course, Trump is a former president. While president, he could declassify literally anything under the sun, no matter how secret it was. So where's the law breaking? Are you going to try to prove that it wasn't declassified? Is the National Archives going to claim that a copy of a piece of paper that was low-level classified is somehow there was some sort of remiss notion behind Donald Trump that he didn't give it over to them, even though he was legally entitled to possess it? I Eat Iron. Hey, Clank Father, Pelosi visiting Taiwan, having an ancient woman going against the CCPs aren't terrible, right? Just a shame she opened her mouth. Yeah, Pelosi should have just gone over there and eaten some noodles and then come home. Paracelsus Underrock. Never underestimate the power of mass NPCs voting. Yes, but I think that the NPC ratio of the population is actually shrinking. People are beginning to wake up to how fucked up the situation really is. So yes, we have Twitter. They have a civic integrity policy. They will enforce this differentially. If you are on the right, libertarian, anti-com, like I am, of course, or simply anti-establishment, even if you're from the left in some cases, you will be banned for questioning any of the results of the upcoming midterms. If you are a neolib or a neocon, and you're fine with the situation overall politically, but the neocon or the neolib lost against the MAGA candidate, or possibly even a leftoid, you will be banned for questioning that. Nick Meischer. Until I see a photo of Russian girls urinating on U.S. nuclear launch codes, I won't believe this. Now we'll pivot away from the Mar-a-Lago raid sort of stuff. Again, I'm trying to keep it a little bit quicker today. Opinion, Biden's Afghanistan exit decision looks even worse a year later. This is from CNN Opinion. And the basic gist of the article is something we're going to see in the coming days. Of course, we're very close to the 1-year anniversary of the disaster, which was the Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan, the leaving behind of tens of billions of dollars in U.S. military goods, the death of multiple U.S. personnel, the enslavement of the entire female population of Afghanistan, the takeover by the Taliban, the re-entry now, we know, of Al-Qaeda. Of course, their leader, Zawahiri, was killed fairly recently. Biden gets big applause for that for no reason. Everything there is basically back to the way it was before we invaded. Only worse now, because they've got more weapons. And they're supplied by the United States taxpayers. They are preemptively, in my opinion, seeking to cast blame on the concept of withdrawing entirely. Why? Because Trump brokered the withdrawal deal. And that's really what this boils down to. The idea is that they're going to criticize the very concept of withdrawal. They'll say, well, Biden didn't have any choice at the 11th hour. He tried to salvage the situation by pushing the date back and making sure that things were out, but there just wasn't enough time. Biden tried. Trump lied. That's what they're going to go with. It's going to be Trump derangement syndrome over and over again here. The reality is, if we had stuck to the timeline, you probably would not have seen a Taliban surge. The Taliban only surged in the first place because all the tribal warlords decided to back them in the struggle, other than the ones in the very far north, because of the fact that we ignored the agreed upon timeline. And Biden, meanwhile, did not take any precautions to get U.S. equipment out, to get U.S. personnel out, to make sure that there was some sort of security in Kabul so that people that wanted out could get out. He never did any of these things. He spent months and months and months ignoring the issue, despite having been selected for his office. Also, he had called the Afghan president at the time, what was it, Karzai or somebody, interchangeable bullshit. He called him. And this is record. This was related by the legacy media. And he said, just sugarcoat the situation. Make it sound like it's not as dire as it really is. Does this sound like a person who thinks that he's confident that he can actually get everything out in the proper timeline? And he never made any further adjustments to that timeline. There was no effort to actually get U.S. armor, U.S. personnel, U.S. civilians, allies, translators, and so forth. There was no effort to get them out of Afghanistan. But Biden acknowledged openly in a call to the Afghan president that things were effectively falling apart and they could not even hold Kabul, let alone all of Afghanistan. That's the reality. The reality is that Biden completely screwed up the situation. And it was on purpose, by the way. There was never any will in Joe Biden to care about the U.S. personnel or anything. He's glad that some of them died, because then you can conduct drone strikes there with impunity. The American people, some of them tend to be quite war happy. When somebody, random U.S. private dies, all of a sudden we get to kill an entire orphanage and then drone them for the next 6 months. It's a big problem. There was no effort by Biden to actually make the withdrawal work. There was by Trump, but they are going to preemptively blame Trump for the very idea of a withdrawal existing. Well, we shouldn't have left so quickly. John McCain was right. We should have stayed. Yeah, we should have stayed in there for the next 20,000 years. That would have made Afghanistan a lot more safe, a lot more stable. David Ford, Ronald Trump, 2024. Dan Malone, 53, BlackRock's ESG socialist agenda. Jesse Smallwood, there has been no president charged with violating the Presidential Records Act. Trump hasn't been charged with this yet, but it looks like their angle. It really gets the noggin jogging. Yeah, they're desperate to stop him. They're terrified of him. And that's because the entire lamestream is corrupt. We know that. I mean, we've seen it for the last 50 years. And he happens not to be. He's the one that's trying to stand in their way and break the toys. And they don't want to tolerate that. The quicker flipper picker-upper. Hillary, there are 10 people who don't trust Trump with the nuke codes. 2016, second debate. Just another Hillary witch hunt. Yeah. Ben Dover, more money for the little one. Keep clanking. Thank you. Battle Elf, Sticks, prayers to Moloch worked. My speeding ticket was dismissed. Yeah, apparently speeding tickets and shit like that, if you just show up in court half the time, they don't even show up to contest it. So you might as well, unless it's meaningless. Stephen Nizek, maybe one day the United States government will let an American citizen be as well armed as a Taliban fighter post-Biden tuck and run. I dream of that day. Yes, indeed. I want to buy RPGs because I think it'd be fun for garden defense. And you can plow the ground with it. You know, you have enough RPGs, you don't have to have a rototiller. Lev Polyakov, looking forward to break the rules with you and Alex Stein at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll bring my cat. I cannot force my cats to be on the video, but my hope is that one of them will be up there. Because it's so hot, they want to snuggle anyway. Pretty good odds. Jason Lee. Sticks, please buy a walking fish and name him Stixolotl. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore is all right. He's a broken clock, but that's better than most liberals. E100 Omega 123. Milley and the rest of the Joint Chiefs who oversaw the Afghan withdrawal disaster should all be demoted and jailed. They all have blood on their hands. I would just kick them out. By the way, I think that people are not being notified about the Rumble stream. Yeah, people are saying it says video unavailable and it's intermittently out. People on Rumble, can you, for those of you that are in chat on Rumble, and there's only 46 of you, which is way, way below normal, let me know what the hell is happening. I don't know exactly what's happening. It might be a glitch. The site might be updating or something. Now we've got Emma FN. Worst productivity drop ever means more inflation. Yes, U.S. productivity has basically completely collapsed. That is not necessarily good news. Labor productivity annualized change. It has gone to, what is it, negative 2.2. The nearest was negative 2, and that was in 1974. To be clear, that was the preface for the Carter stagflationary cycle. That is very double plus ungood, as our Newspeak parlance will allow us to say. Capital goods orders fall in real terms. Yes, indeed. Basically, the idea is this, that the demand for goods is plummeting. And Biden is wise in one sense. He's set up to blame the Fed for this with his remarks months ago by saying, well, my plan for inflation is to let the Fed do its job. But then he can blame the Fed for overshooting if they accidentally cause a significant reduction in the demand for goods, causing stagflation. It's almost masterful. I kind of admire his staff for putting that in his head to say, because he clearly didn't dream it up on his own. And that is unfortunately what I've been warning about and what is likely to happen. If the productivity is plummeting and the labor force participation is inching downward and the new jobless claims are beginning to rise. It doesn't really matter what the unemployment rate is, which is a fixed number anyway. It's not really relevant at this point. If you have inflation, and we do, significant inflation, and you then have a lowered productivity, a lowered demand, a lowered number of people participating in the workforce, eventually you end up with stagflation. And I think that we will. I think there is a better than 50-50 chance over the next few months that we enter stagflation. And we're in a recession. To be clear as well, these numbers don't mean that the next quarter's growth will be positive. It indicates it'll probably be negative. Well, then, I mean, it's going to be difficult for them to argue that we're not in a recession at that point. It's interesting, by the way, all the news about the United States heading into a recession has been conveniently forgotten now, hasn't it, over the last 48 to 72 hours? Jesse Smallwood, a cult video on the Native American Wendigo. I think I actually did one already. You'll have to dig through the playlist, though. Mark Goodetti. Mika, make Istanbul Constantinople again. That would require a lot of fire and sword. The Grizzly, what's the story with the guy Fed posting at the feds in real life? I saw a bunch of scuttlebutt about it last night, but not much now. I don't know what that refers to, so I don't have an opinion. Yeah, apparently Rumble is having problems today. The chat's working, but there aren't many people watching. Usually I get like 1,500 people. There's 50 in there right now. To all of you on Rumble, yeah, there appears to be some sort of issue at the moment. People were not notified and the app's not working. I'm assuming that they're updating it, so my apologies. We'll stand down and stand by, I suppose. Ozzy's Robots, Legacy Media, and Legacy Tech's real influence outside of their echo chambers seems like a dying husk. Their credibility is non-existent and propaganda laid bare. Twitter's fortification will fall flat. Yeah, I mean, they can ban people off Twitter. It's not going to actually do much. Now we've got AMAC here, Association of Mature American Citizens, which is, I think, a meme. Democrats dump Biden dilemma. The Democrats have a problem. Their incumbent first-term president is so unpopular, he is negatively affecting their party's prospects for the coming national midterm elections. I will give him one bit of credit. That tends to be the average president at the end of their first term. And he has minimal prospects of his own to be reelected in 2 years. He and his administration's record and policies have caused the midterms to be unfavorably nationalized so that the Democrats' control of the U.S. House and Senate could be lost in November. They have a 50-50 chance of holding the Senate. They have basically no chance of holding the House. That you don't even need Biden. You could have a legendarily popular Dem president probably still lose the House. You control it by only a handful of seats, and the tendency is for the reigning party to lose House seats in the midterms. It's only gone the other way, I think, twice in the last, 100 years or something. So that's off the table. With the Senate, it was always closer to a 50-50. What I find funny, and I'm not saying that about this particular article by Barry Castleman. What I find funny is that there are so many liberals who want to singularly blame it on Joe Biden being unpopular, without recognizing that in some cases it's a bigger dysfunction within the Democratic Party. It's the left versus the neoliberals, that schism, that doesn't help. It's the existence of Democrats that say weird shit, people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Eric Swalwell, people that alienate other people, people that get crazy, and many of them are clearly insane. They don't want to admit to any of that. They would rather just blame it on Biden, which is why my worry is that even if they get crushed in the midterms, they'll just throw Biden under the bus, refuse to do any soul searching. They go into 2024. We're still effectively a one viable party system, which is the GOP takes all, and there is no alternative. My natural home is not the GOP. I don't like elements of the moralism. I like the gun policies. I go far beyond the GOP. I like the tax policies. I like the anti-CRT stuff. I like what I'm seeing from many of the MAGA crowd. But I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I feel like I have no political home within the general two-party system. Even among the libertarians, under the old libertarians, of course, I do not believe in open borders. That's a problem. Under the new libertarians, I don't believe in national divorce horseshit. So I'm still an outsider. What the fuck am I supposed to vote for, dude? I default to voting for the Trump Republicans, despite having been an Obama voter in 2008. What are you people doing? Why don't you just wise up? I hope that you people just collapse so that you can do some soul searching. Get Joe Kennedy to run. Lev Polyakov, Jordan Peterson, Wendigo Psychosis. Do not research. Ricky Tricky, why did Hector fall to Achilles in mythology? Didn't Achilles have a weak heel because his mother passed him over the fire, but she held him by one heel, and so the heel didn't go into the fire, and that was his one vulnerable spot? And then he got hit with I don't remember exactly how he died. And Hector, I don't know. I don't know the full backstory there. Nick Palladino, are we really using the WMD excuse to invade again? That seems like it. We're using it to investigate a former sitting president at the moment. Paracelsus Underak talking about Newspeak. Globalism equals historical empire and NATO, vassal nations. American government is spreading and debasing the currency exactly as Rome. I would disagree. I have no problem with NATO. Globalism goes way far beyond that. There are plenty of corrupt attaches in the Eastern Bloc that play nice with the same basic theme. They want money too. No, Yanez, did you already talk about the Ohio FBI shooter? I'm not going to bother talking about it because I don't care about the issue. One nut does not a big threat to the FBI make, although it's being astroturfed as though it was. Sebastian Monroe, my paneer turned out great. Has consistency of feta, so I cut it up and put it on a pizza. I'll need to get a mold and press to form a creamery from a creamery supplier. Yeah, paneer is really easy and really great. The Spencer. No, she dipped him in the river except his ankle. I had heard that it was dipping in fire, if I remember correctly. There might be multiple versions of the story, to tell the truth, and it tends to be a thing in antiquity. Now, Newsweek says the Zelensky narrative is shifting. Volodymyr Zelensky increasingly reveals his true nature. For months, the Ukrainian president has enjoyed nonstop adulation from the American press. Nobody's talking about him currently. And audiences with celebrity glitterati. But now the reality of his rule in Ukraine is becoming undeniable, even to most ardent enablers in America, many of whom happen to be Republicans. Yes, there are many Republicans that think that in a time of recession, with massive inflation, possibly stagflation in the coming months, we need to send tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine to own the Russians. It's very, very interesting. I think we should stay closer to home myself. I'm unfortunately in a minority of thinking people on this subject somehow. This is not a surprise. The idea as well, Ukraine is corrupt and stuff. We're beginning to have second thoughts. We're beginning to have questions about funding this ship. I noticed that it was right about the time that it looked like Ukraine might be having military issues, that they said, okay, maybe enough is enough. It's they want to cut and run. They're going to stab Zelensky in the back. I hope to Zelensky, I hope you know that the U.S. neocon and neoliberal warmongers, they're not actually your friends. They're making money for their arms dealer buddies. They hope that you win because that looks good for their military equipment. But if you lose, then they just autopsy the results. They take that damaged equipment and they improve it further. It's a form of technological evolution. They don't give a shit about you or your country. They hope that you're torn up. They would love it if all of you died, actually. So I don't have a problem with cutting off our money and weapons sending to Ukraine. I say send the Stinger missiles and the mortars and the tanks and all the other goodies to the American public. Yes, I trust because I'm a patriot, I trust the average American more than the average Ukrainian with literally anything because I have pride in my nation. The Grizzly, I'd love it for the Dems to reform and rise from the ashes. I just don't think it's possible at this point. I think what's likely to happen is they just lurch further and further left until they're a minority party. I think you underestimate the neoliberals' money and influence. Texman81. I'm buying stock in the company that owns Banana Republic stores. They may become the new supplier of clothing to government agencies. Yeah, no, I think that they'll be wearing sackcloth at some point with the Biden inflation cycle. Drew McTighe. Achilles was dunked into the river Styx. His mother held his ankle. An arrow hit his ankle. I could have sworn that the original story was that he was held over the fire, like, Moloch style or something to toughen him up, and that she held him by the ankle, and that was why there was a weakness. Apparently, I was wrong. I'm forgetting my Greek mythology. You can't know everything all of the time. I sit there and edit occult works literally all day. At some point, your brain gets a little bit filled with this stuff. Now, we're going to talk about, I was going to talk about this, but it appears that the article is trying to hide itself, even on the archive. Just a moment. From great moderation to great stagflation. For decades, relative global stability, sound economic policy, management, and the steady expansion of trade to and from emerging markets combined to keep costs down. But now all these conditions have been overturned and the world is settling into a dangerous and destabilizing new regime. The gist of this article, which I guess you have to register to keep reading, but I archived it. So it gives you the first few paragraphs. It gives you the part that is propagandistic, mainly, by the way. Hint, hint. The basic idea is that the death of globalism or attacks on globalism is actually bad, and it's going to cause prices to hike. I would say that absolutely, it's going to cause prices to rise. It will also bring up wages along with those prices potentially. Or it could drop the prices, but who cares? The currency is manipulated anyway. It doesn't matter if the prices rise. The Fed will just print more money to make any reigning regime that's not globalistic look bad, just to collapse it. But what I would say is they're trying to cast it off as the death of globalistic trade with no restrictions, anti-fair trade, that the death of that means you're going to pay more. Well, who cares? It's all cheap shit anyway, for the most part. Who gives a shit? They're trying to blame the anti-globalists for economic problems caused by globalism. That's the irony there. I eat iron. I heard he was dipped in Yarrow brew, therefore the Latin name is Achilles millefolium. Haha. Manix 1969. Love your videos. Been watching since 2017. Do you watch Rick and Morty? You remind me of Rick and vice versa. I did actually watch Rick and Morty for a while. It's pretty funny, actually. I don't get the fans of Rick and Morty, like people who went into McDonald's and started screaming for Szechuan sauce and stuff like that. I don't really get into the fanboy side of things, but I thought it was a funny series. It's definitely better if you're drunk, by the way. Joseph Coleman, you are right about Achilles. The mother covered him in ambrosia and placed him in fire. The father pulled him out and the ankle was left vulnerable. Thank you. Yeah, I could have sworn that it was fire. People are telling me it's water. There's got to be a mix-up somewhere. I always liked Greek mythology. The presidential touch. Sorry, Sticks. I think I was the one who accidentally got you kicked off Twitch. I mentioned you on Ella Thrasher livestream 2 nights ago, and a few hours later, you can blame her fans for it. Who gives a shit? I forgive you. If that actually is the case, it doesn't really matter. To the handful of people that were watching me on Twitch, I do apologize, but their moderation is a joke. I filed an appeal, but I don't even expect to get a response from them. I covered this the other day. If I do get a response, it's probably going to be, well, we've decided to uphold our ban. You're a really bad person. The only thing that chuffs me at all is you didn't give me any forewarning. You're telling me that my violation was specifically very severe, and so it wasn't multiple strikes. It was a one severe strike. YouTube does this, by the way, too. Generally, when you're talking about a severe strike on your channel where they go past their own strike system, it's something really out there. Fuck, I know what I'm saying during my live streams. All the examples you're giving me of things I could violate don't even apply to the situation. I have to assume that it was a mass flagging raid, partially bot in nature probably, and a sympathetic moderator that quickly Googled my name and saw Rational Wiki, decided, well, we don't need him on the platform. Whatever, I wasn't making any money there. I had like 100 people tuning in. Dude, I've got over 3,100 on YouTube right now, even though nobody's being notified, and I'm doing it at 6:30 in the fucking morning. Got almost 100 on Rumble. Apparently, they're not notifying anyone at the moment either. Let's see. Amber Bird, the Trump raid could be IRS army distraction. I think that they're both very concerning. Temp viewer 12345. Sticks, not enough pew talk today. I'm building new AR and 65 Creed long-range pointing device. Also update the archives div checklist to include new codes. What do you want on your nothing burger? Clank. Creed. I've heard of Creed, actually. Toxic Matrix, burned in fire every night and dipped into the river Styx. Okay, so first burned and then dipped. Okay, so we're all right. The Lost Legion, in regards to your previous video, is it a breach of the first to force the media to disclose sources when the subject of the article is a government official? Why is an unnamed source accepted? Well, because the unnamed source is usually a staffer from the same legacy media outlet. The WAPO probably had one of their staffers literally call in a tip to them. They have done this before. To be clear, with the Steele dossier, the people leaking that shit out, Pissgate, all of these other things were from the media itself. They were not actually anonymous sources, the janitor at the White House. They were from within the legacy media. It is an absolute hit piece. It's also probably illegal, but you have to be able to prove that. And they hide behind journalism in order to prevent themselves from being investigated. Apache Senpai, what's your opinion on Tim Pool's prediction that the raid is a setup for the mass arrest of Republicans in October? I don't think that'll happen. El DeGusto, I believe Demeter had legends of passing a baby through fire as well, but it's funny Achilles is dunked in the river of your namesake. Yes, the river Styx, a very fun place to be. It is a real river, by the way, in Greece. Boraquadimus, I am an alcoholic and tired of pretending that's a problem. I like to drink. Who cares? Well, do what you love, I suppose. Just don't kill yourself, destroy your liver. Devin Frazier, I'm thankful that Trump opened my eyes to just how deep the corruption in government and media is. I used to think it was moderately corrupt, but it's fully. See, I can claim a victory here. I knew that it was completely corrupt years ago. Only in the past, when I was like an Obama voter, I looked at like Fox and I said, oh my God, what horse shit is here? It's corporatized, it's lies by omission, lies by structure, all the things that I identify now, identified in Fox. A little bit later, thankfully, I went through the Ron Paul revolution sort of thing. And then I realized it was all of them. They're all saying the fucking same thing. Fox, CNN, MSNBC, etc. And I've remained the same since. Thank you, Ron Paul. Sorry about your mini stroke there. Ricky Tricky, what are people fighting for all over the world? And is the answer, is the an answer or is it human nature? Just keep fighting. Yeah, people will always fight because it's an extension of evolutionary biology. It's pure competitive urge. Sebastian Monroe, did you see Carrie Lake roast a CNN reporter? Funny. I didn't, but I'm going to have to look at that. Next story here. After rebranding in the West, many beauty companies are still offering to whiten skin elsewhere. Yes, weak, pathetic Westerners have a problem with the concept of people wanting to lighten their skin. If they want to darken it with bronzer, that's perfectly okay and politically correct. If they are on the darker side, though, and they simply want to even their skin and lighten it a tone or two, regardless of how much it is, that's considered to be terrible within the West. However, in the entire rest of the world, nobody has a fucking problem with it. The same as they don't have a fucking problem with the idea of darkening one's skin, or changing its tone, or evening it out, or literally anything other to do with cosmetics. Only first world problem generating post-industrial morons, pathetic morons with political correctness ahead of basic pragmatism on their minds, give a fucking goddamn shit if a company offers a skin lightening substance. And by the way, you can prepare it yourselves. You can get enough herbs and minerals and shit like that on eBay and probably figure out how to make a basic skin lightener. I've read and edited works from the 19th century that literally cover the concept. Also, hair removal, skin darkening, making it more even, getting rid of acne, getting rid of other blemishes, etc., etc. And cosmetics is a big thing because people, they want to look good. Look at the 1700s with the French. You can be a manly man and you can still wear a wig, full makeup, and basically a dress. Maybe they were a little bit weird at the time. But there's a big problem with the concept within the West. In 2020, as the BLM movement amplified calls for racial justice in the U.S. and beyond, a succession of corporate announcements signaled what appeared to be a watershed moment for the cosmetics industry. With multinationals pressured by the public to express support for racial equality, consumers were quick to highlight the inconsistency between companies' public statements and their continued promotion of creams, serums, and lotions promising to whiten users' skin. Again, bronzer is perfectly fine. Foundation of other kinds is fine. I guess gothic people, they're really problematic now. In response, several major skincare manufacturers pledged to revise their branding and product lines. And then they talk about how they were going to stop the sale, or they were going to change the wording behind them, which is to say you can still get the product, but we had to change the name because these morons are complaining. Did you change the name of bronzer or anything like that? What about if I take a makeup that's generally meant for people of African American descent and put it on my face and it's basically blackface? Am I problematic too? Guaranteed. If I use a little bit of bronzer, I'll get called a Trump sycophant because I'm obviously trying to be like Orange Man. If I lighten my skin, I'm problematic because I'm trying to be more white, and being white is, I guess, objectionable to some of these people. I would note that all the CEOs of these companies are white, just to be clear. White and usually male. White, straight male Christians run the companies. They cuck before literally every other group of people when necessary. Ricky Tricky sent €5. Thank you. Symbolic belief. As a kid I know went to the LIV golf tournament and asked Trump if he's running in 2024. Trump leaned into his ear and whispered, "You will be very happy." Yeah, I mean, he is clearly running. So yeah, I'm going to get bronzer. And I'm going to make myself orange. This will be very woke. And yeah, that was actually the end. Or is it? Actually, I might have one more. Okay. No, that was the end of the news stories. I will go off now. Yeah, I'm going to smear my face with talcum powder, actually, because I want to be more white. I'm not allowed to get whitening, serums or anything from Johnson & Johnson. The ones that'll cause cancer. So I'm just going to smear myself with powdered soapstone and little foundation, and I'll look great. Actually, by the way, you can do that. And on camera, nobody will notice. I wonder how many of you noticed that I literally just took a handful of powdered soapstone, which I had been carving on anyway, and basically rubbed it into my face before the matte and blonde appearance where I was in full makeup. I had the black lipstick and shit, which, by the way, it's not cross-dressing or anything like that. It's literally was drunk and fun at the time. I had a great time on that stream, by the way. How many of you noticed that I literally just smeared soapstone powder all over myself? Literally none of you, I think. That was great. I'll do it again. Ozzy the Terrible. My problem with this red wave sticks is that I have not heard a single proactive legislative agenda from any of the candidates. No contract with America. There are plenty of proposals from the MAGA types. Getting rid of the FBI. Getting rid of CRT in schools. Defunding that. I think that these are good ideas. Going after gun control. Standing behind Bruin and then some. Axiom Shift, you sent almost $100. Thank you, my dude or dudette. Bought the CRT book and like it so far. You should do more writing. Money for diapers. Clank. Yes, make sure to share info about that book with many other people. And thank you very much for your donation. That was one of my favorite to write because it was fun. Because, I mean, it's easy to debunk, so it's not difficult to write. It was interesting to sort of stretch my mind forward and do the logic thing with regards to some of the arguments made. For those of you that don't know, I did a booklet debunking critical race theory, or critical race theory debunked, rather. And there were 5 main points that were echoed among the intellectuals that founded the concept of CRT. This is decades ago. That has trickled down into the educational system. And the 5 main points, some of them self-refuted. One of them was effectively an admission of Marxist influence and third wave feminist influence. The points don't really stand. And it was related, I think, fact check me if you want. I think it was Vox News that I took the article off of. And they were reporting on the original academics that actually created it and their 5 points. And I went through them and I debunked them all. Sold, I think by now, almost 2,500 copies of that booklet, actually. I didn't expect that. I mean, I know that it's sort of like algorithm hijacking when you're doing something that's big in the news at the time, but I didn't expect to sell that many copies. Aspartame brain tumor. Eric Swalwell once said, "He was me. Why haven't I had a crack at Fang Fang yet?" I don't know anything about that, my dude. I think, didn't Fang Fang get killed in a plane crash or something under mysterious circumstances? Wonder who ordered that one. Planes don't generally crash without a reason. By the way, MSNBC is still coping and seething and dilating with regards to the new Trump news. They're still trying to cover themselves up along with all these other morons because Trump has come out and said, hey, I don't give a shit if you release the warrant. Go ahead. I encourage you to do so. When they were all, they spent the entire day yesterday telling everybody, hey, if he was innocent, he wouldn't have a problem with the warrant being unsealed. And then he said that the warrant should be unsealed. He had no issue with it. And all of a sudden they pivoted. I wonder why that happened. Ricky Tricky, why are people not taken to trial in America if the grounds are sound? Most of the time, a little known fact within the justice system, if you can call it that, most things never really go to trial. They end in a plea agreement. So you've assaulted somebody with a deadly weapon, but it's your first time. You got angry, you talked to the prosecutor, you weren't trying to hide anything, and they don't think that you're really probably a threat. And they say, come on, I've got to charge you. If you plead guilty to simple assault, we'll let it go. You plead guilty to a misdemeanor, effectively. You're not going to be a felon. We're not taking your guns. You can still vote and everything. You spend a few months in jail. You might have to do a civil case against the person that you tried to kill. But we're not going to do like attempted murder or anything. We'll let you off with effectively a slap on the wrist compared to what we could fucking give you. Take the fucking deal. That's what something like 70 to 80% of all cases take the form of. In some cases, it's justified. I would do that too. If I was a prosecutor, someone's like, they've got a bunch of cocaine. But I find out you had a bad upbringing. You were on the streets and shit. You were homeless and stuff. You're literally doing this to make ends meet or something. I don't want to charge you with a felony. I'll try to do anything that I can to get you a lesser sentence. I don't want you to be in jail for an extended period. My hope is that you just see the light and, I don't know, some fairy tale bullshit go on with your life. Then there are cases where it probably shouldn't be the case, like the case of, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's trafficking people to thousands of other individuals, including underage people. And then she gets a sweetheart deal where she'll probably spend only a handful of years in a lowest security possible facility doing yoga classes. Well, there shouldn't have been any sort of agreement. She should have had the book thrown at her. Manix 1969, what do you think of educational vouchers allowing parents to opt out of the public school system? I think it's a good idea. I think that we should pay people who homeschool as though they were teachers. Not a banned account. Trump raided, no consequences. Martial law next? No, this doesn't lead to martial law. It leads to a huge backlash, I think. Julian DiChiara, Sticks, what happened on Twitch? Will you return? Well, I mean, I'll stream there if they allow me to, but I'm not expecting even getting a response on my appeal. And I don't care because almost nobody was watching me there. The site is basically a backwater for anything that doesn't involve low-cut blouses, ASMR, or gaming. Leo C. Trump is like X-Lax for modern America, flushing out the festering deep state filth. Or he's like chemo. Yeah, people are still having problems over on fucking Rumble, by the way, some of them. Battle Elf, who's your favorite serial killer? None of them. I'm not into serial killing. The most interesting, though, is Albert Fish. He was, look him up, one fucked up motherfucker. Beyond, despite having a potentially lower death count, Albert Fish was definitely the most psychologically out there, bar none. Probably, other than maybe Pol Pot, arguably the most insane person ever documented to exist. John Danner III, this is hilarious because the river is actually named Styx. Yes, and then you also have Acheron. All right, anyway, I'm going to go off, rest my voice for a little while. Keep in mind, I will be on BTR in about an hour. There is a link. If you've been watching on YouTube, go to the chat first. There is a link there. Take it, share it out. We'll be on BTR with Alex Stein. He's the one that trolled AOC. Please don't send any more super chats. I will get through these last few. Symbolic Belief, what do you have planned for fun this fall? Not roasting in 90-degree temperatures. That's basically it. Julian DiChiara, it was small growth on there, but it's a lefty-oriented website. I was hoping we could colonize it with Clankdom. Hashtag Twitch. That's why they banned me, in all honesty. Some pink-haired moron out there is literally thinking that it's an own that they got me banned off of Twitch. I'm so surprised. The only surprise is I'm surprised it took them so long to ban me. I had over 5,000 people following me. I never expected to get to 2,000. I figured, I'm going to be bullseyed off this long before that. God, I must be on my fucking best behavior. Either that or I'm caught slipping. So yes, I'm going to go off now. Keep in mind, we will be on BTR again take that link. I've shared it out cross-platform. If you know me on Twitter, Gab, Minds, Parler, Getter, the link is already out there. I've already posted it. I posted it on YouTube as well on my homepage on the community tab on my channel. And so I will be on there with Alex Stein. We need to clank on him. We're going to be trolling each other. We're going to be comparing notes in order to get good jokes for the future. We'll probably talk about Myra Flores too. That's about all. Peace out.